Explore the enigmatic history of the Jagiellonian Dynasty, a powerhouse royal family that dominated Central Europe for generations. Originating from Jogaila, the Lithuanian Grand Duke, who ascended as Poland's King Władysław II Jagiełło via his 1386 marriage to Queen Jadwiga. This lineage governed Poland, Lithuania, Hungary, and Bohemia. Through pivotal alliances like the 1385 Union of Krewo and the 1569 Union of Lublin, they forged the expansive Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, a force that reshaped the continent. Their staggering wealth, estimated at $300 to $500 million in modern terms, flowed from sprawling royal estates, vital trade networks, and substantial taxation. Iconic triumphs, including the 1410 Battle of Grunwald, sparked Poland's golden age, while their patronage fueled cultural milestones such as the Jagiellonian University and Renaissance artistry, paralleling the grandeur of the Bourbons Versailles. However, beneath this splendor lurked profound mysteries. Unsolved murders, secret unions, and contentious religious deals, reminiscent of the Bonaparte family's assassinations or the Lee clan's slavery controversies. Unlike the Goulds' vanished riches, the Jagiellonians' impact endures via cultural heritage and lineages like the Czartoryski family, echoing the Grosvenors' enduring prestige. In this video, reveal the concealed facets of Jagiellonian power, betrayals, and fortunes. Perfect for fans of royal intrigue, European dynasties, or historical scandals. Watch now, like, and subscribe for more captivating stories. What's your favorite royal secret? Share in the comments. From new money to old money, Jogaila's Lithuanian ducal wealth was exactly that new money. Jogaila's fortune was rooted in the Gediminian conquests, a dynasty that expanded Lithuania through aggressive military campaigns, starting with Grand Duke Gediminas in the early 14th century, conquering regions like western Smolensk in battles against the Principality of Smolensk. Around 1320, southern Polesia with its marshy terrains for natural defenses, and temporarily Kiev around 1330 under his brother Fyodor, who served as prince there briefly before Mongol pressures forced a retreat, creating one of Europe's largest states by the mid-1300s, with territory the size of modern France and Germany combined, encompassing forests, rivers, and steppes, yielding abundant resources. Born around 1352 or 1362 in Vilnius, then a fortified hilltop settlement with wooden structures and pagan temples, he was no silver spoon kid. He came from the Gediminian clan, a Lithuanian powerhouse built through sheer conquest, seizing territories from neighbors like the Teutonic Knights in the north during border skirmishes such as the Battle of the Vorskla River in 1399, and the Golden Horde in the east through raids capturing slaves and livestock, often via brutal surprise attacks on nomadic camps and alliances with local Ruthenian princes, incorporating diverse groups like Balts, Slavs, and Tatars under pagan rule, centered on gods like Perkunas, the thunder deity. The Gediminids didn't inherit estates, they seized them through wars, transforming Lithuania from tribes unified under Mindaugas in the 13th century into a grand duchy stretching from the Baltic to the Black Sea by Jogaila's time, with expansions under his father Algirdas and uncle Kęstutis, who jointly ruled and pushed into Muscovite lands, briefly capturing Moscow in 1368 and 1370 during raids that burned suburbs but spared the Kremlin for tributes. Jogaila became Grand Duke in 1377 after Algirdas's natural death, but faced power struggles immediately, like a civil war with Uncle Kęstutis in 1381-1382, where Kęstutis usurped the throne by allying with disgruntled boyars and capturing Vilnius, but was imprisoned in Krewo Castle after Jogaila's counterattack with Polish mercenaries, dying mysteriously, possibly suicide per records or murder, highlighting the ruthless edge of building that new money empire amid family betrayals, pagan cremation rites, and external threats. By then, Lithuania was a pagan stronghold, wealthy from vast lands but isolated from Christian Europe's elite due to non-Christian status, making alliances tricky as popes, encouraged crusades, and Teutons launched raids from castles like Marienburg. Wealth came from controlling territories, extracting timber from forests for shipbuilding and export, furs trapped and traded in Novgorod, amber from Baltic shores, prized for jewelry and monopolized, and dominating trade routes with tolls on rivers like Nemunas and Dnieper, exchanging slaves and wax for Byzantine silks and spices in Constantinople. It was bold, brutal, and full of opportunity, but new money has limits. To endure, evolution is key, and Jogaila pivoted to transition his dynasty from conquests to old money prestige via religious and political change. That pivot was his 1386 royal ascension as Władysław II Jagiełło, King of Poland. Poland's Queen Jadwiga, a 12-year-old Angevin crowned at 10 in 1384 after Father Louis the Great's death, needed a strategic match after her betrothal to William of Austria, failed due to nobles fearing Habsburg dilution of privileges. Jogaila, seeking to counter Teutonic crusades ravaging borders since the 1230s, agreed to Catholic conversion, marriage, and union to align with Christians and end holy war pretexts. Baptized February 15, 1386, in Krakow Cathedral with bishops and envoys, he took Władysław to honor past heroes like Władysław I Łokietek, unifier who restored the kingdom in 1320. Crowned March 4th, boom pagan duke to Christian monarch, attended by dignitaries from Hungary, Bohemia, and Papal States, starting the Jagiellonian Dynasty with feasts in Krakow Square. This rivaled Habsburg imperial reach. Jogaila's move created a Polish-Lithuanian union spanning Baltic ports like Klaipėda to Black Sea edges near Odessa, encompassing Poles, Lithuanians, Ruthenians, and Germans, formalized by 1385 Union of Krewo in Krewo Castle, promising Lithuania's Christianization, attachment to Poland, and compensation for nobles, though terms debated incorporation versus personal union, leading to revisions like Vilnius Radom in 1401. Tensions arose. Lithuanian nobles resisted autonomy loss and pagan traditions, sparking uprisings. Teutons claimed insincere conversion for attacks. Still, it launched the dynasty, turning new money conquest to old money stability lasting to 1572. He co-ruled with Jadwiga until her 1399 childbirth death, then solo to 1434, expanding like reclaiming Red Ruthenia in 1387 against Hungary's Sigismund, securing Dniester routes and salt-rich lands. Pure power play blending Lithuanian might with Polish prestige, influencing politics from Council of Constance to autumn encounters in Balkans. Ascending the throne was step one in old money. Jagiellonians invested in legacy via cultural patronage, elevating from warriors to enlightened rulers. In 1400, they refounded Jagiellonian University in Krakow. Started by Casimir the Great in 1364, with Urban V's approval for law and theology training, but fizzled post-1370 due to funding shortages and Angevin instability. Jogaila revived it with Boniface IX's 1397 charter, operational by 1400, endowing theology, law, medicine, Arabic texts via Salerno, and arts faculties, attracting Europeans like Germans, Hungarians, Scandinavians, with hundreds enrolled by mid-15th century. Scholars included Copernicus studying 1491 to 1495 under Wojciech of Brudzewo, groundwork for 1543 heliocentric theory, or Paweł Włodkowicz advocating law and tolerance at 1414 to 1418 Council of Constance against forced conversions. Kraków became Renaissance hotspot. Italian Bartolomeo Berecci rebuilt Wawel with arcaded courtyards, mythological frescoes, Flemish tapestries of hunts and Bible scenes. Sigismund I, 1506 to 1548, during Golden Age brought artists via wife Bona Sforza, introducing humanism, gardens, cuisine, turning city to jewel, with 1533 Sigismund Chapel blending Gothic mannerism, gilded interior and saint sculptures. Jagiellonians crafted intellectual empire fostering Golden Age, university producing diplomats like Jan Waski reforming 1505 legal code. Printing presses emerged 1473 with Caspar Straube's calendar, spreading texts in Latin, Cyrillic for Orthodox East, like Ptolemy's Almagest. Patronage integrated elites, granting Catholic Lithuanian Slakta rights via 1413 Union of Krewo, adopting 47 families into Polish clans like Ogunchik, promoting unity. Smart, conquest wealth to enduring influence, name living through ideas. Kraków, rivaling Bologna or Paris, attracting Filippo Buonaccorsi, teaching poetry. If cultural flexing was one pillar, marriages were the networking hack, forging alliances, solidifying status by linking to top houses. They weed for unbreakable alliances, using matrimony for expansion with dowries, treaties, papal dispensations. Jogaila married 4 times. Jadwiga, 1386 for crown, arranged to Christianize and end Teutonic threats, no heirs before death. Anna of Chile, 1402. Habsburg, relative via grandmother, legitimizing rule, producing daughter Jadwiga betrothed, but dead young. Elizabeth of Pilisza, 1417, magnate causing scandal for status, consolidating support, no male heirs. Sophia of Halshani, 1422, Ruthenian giving heirs Władysław III, Casimir IV, despite clergy opposition over Orthodox background. Papal confirmation. Later unions wove European web. Casimir IV wed Elizabeth of Austria, 1454, Habsburg daughter with Hungary dowry, producing 6 sons claiming thrones like Władysław II Bohemia, 1471, Hungary, 1490, daughters to German princes. Władysław II married Barbara of Brandenburg, 1476 for German ties. Beatrice of Naples, 1490 for Italian after annulment. Anne of Foix-Candale, 1502, French bearing Louis II. Anna. Sigismund Rete to Bona Sforza, 1518. Lavish wedding orchestrated by Maximilian I, bringing Renaissance agriculture, humanism, Milan Sforza links. Intermarried with Borgias. Angevin. Jadwiga's line, Louis XIV claims inherited, leading Jagiellon Hungary rule 1440 to 1444, Władysław III Varna death, 1490 to 1526, Władysław II privileges. Unions secured thrones, Hungary Bohemia 1440 to 1444, Varna crusade, 1471 to 1526, reforming currencies, building fortresses, rivalries with Moscow. Louis II married Mary of Austria, 1522 per 1515, double treaty wedding Ferdinand to Anna, but Mohatch 1526 death let Habsburg's claim via Speyer 1570. Marriages turned trees to fortresses, influence from Poland to Italy, Balancing against Ottomans' Belgrade, 1456, Habsburg's Italian Wars. Power needed fuel. Trade wealth drove old money status. Geography to commercial juggernaut financing wars, weddings. Controlled Baltic ports, Gdansk trade powerhouse post, 1454 to 1466. 13 Years' War versus Teutonic, annexing Pomerelia sea access, breaking monopoly, Royal Prussia autonomy for Turin. Ships grain from estates, timber forests, furs east, sailed Hansa to Lubeck, London, importing English cloth, French wines, Asian spices, Venice, Black Sea via Moldavia, homage 1387, roots wax, honey, slaves, silk, Kilia, Ackerman, contested Ottomans, 1484 Tatars. Network massive. Gdansk exports 100,000 plus tons grain yearly via Vistula, warehouses, crane gate. Under Sigismund Preceedent to 1572, boomed Golden Age, tolls coffers postal 1558. Fights. 2 tons blocked till Grunwald, 1410, clash 50,000 troops. Jogaila Vytautas decimating 27,000 knights. Thorn 1411 indemnities 100,000 marks. Melno 1422 ceding Samagitia. Trade-funded armies, castles, patronage, custom sound. Toll evaded Hans, monopoly salt Wieliczka, amber million silver. Scale turned luck to dominance. Poland wealthiest 16th century, GDP rivaling England, exports feeding half Europe. No dynasty, all triumphs. Path included dynastic feuds, religious conflict shaking legitimacy. Internal drama fueled relatives, factions. Jogaila's feuds, Vytautas' civil war. 1389 to 1392 over Lithuania control, Vytautas, Teutonic alliance raids sieges. Ostrov, 1392, viceroy subordinate. Eastward expansion Vorskla, 1399 Tatar, disaster. Jagiellon rebelled 1430 post-Vytautas. Orthodox support decade war, Polish-Teutonic. Wilkomirs, 1435 defeat, 13,000 slain. Earlier 1401 uprising. Poland nobility versus magnates execution movement, Casimir IV. 1450s, Slachta laws land seizures. Nieshawa 1454 Sejmix, consultation taxes wars. Religious conversion master stroke, 1,387 mass baptisms. Teutons, fake claim crusades till Grunwald 14. 10,800 killed, Master Ulrich slain. Banners Krakow. Hussite wars, 1420s to 1430s. Tensions, Bohemia alliance near versus Sigismund, backed off Pope Martin V clergy. Hussite ideas influenced reformers. 16th century Reformation Lutheran Gdansk, Calvin nobles Radziwiłłs. Sigismund II mediated diets, Piotrków, 1552. Warsaw Confederation, 1573. Tolerance, freedom, nobles preventing massacres, unique Europe. Issues, contested rule. Pagan roots, whispers. Weak heirs. Sigismund II, childless. Infertility, overindulgence. Endured resilience. Fractured Europe. 100 Years echoes. Reconquista end. Ottoman rise, Vienna siege. The Jagiellonian fortune's assets truly exemplified old money prestige, showcasing a blend of power, culture, and economic might. Let's start with their royal estates, which served as symbols of enduring influence. Wawel Castle in Krakow stood at the heart of Polish royalty, an original Romanesque structure from the 11th century, rebuilt in Renaissance style under Sigismund I with Italian flair from architect Francesco Fiorentino. It featured elegant arcades, grand halls adorned with over 300 tapestries from Sigismund Augustus's collection, woven in Antwerp depicting scenes from the story of Jacob, plus chapels like the Holy Cross with 13th century Byzantine frescoes of the Passion, and the famous Sigismund Chapel, a domed masterpiece by Bartolomeo Berecci completed in 1533 as a mausoleum, complete with a gilded lantern roof and intricate carvings of apostles, costing a staggering 50,000 ducats. This castle hosted key events like Jogaila's coronation in 1386 using Bolesław the Brave's crown, along with royal burials and Sejm assemblies. Similarly, Vilnius Palace was Lithuania's equivalent, reconstructed by Sigismund I and II, with Renaissance elements such as arcaded courtyards and defensive towers. It functioned as an administrative and ceremonial hub, boasting vast libraries with Greek manuscripts, armories stocked with Nuremberg cannons, and gardens planted with exotic tulips from Turkey, until its destruction in the 17th century Muscovite deluge wars, only to be rebuilt in the 21st century based on archaeological finds. These weren't just residences, they were fortresses of influence, radiating authority across the realm. On the trade front, the Jagiellonians commanded next-level assets that fueled their empire. Baltic ports like Gdansk and Elbląg came under control after the 1466 Second Peace of Thorn, which ended the 13 Years' War and granted Poland mastery over the Vistula Delta's lagoons. Black Sea access flowed through vassals like Moldavia, with tributes including 3,000 cattle and 400 horses annually, since Jogaila's pacts renewed under Casimir IV. These hubs managed vital routes, exporting rye and wheat from Ukraine's fertile soils, forest products like pitch for ship caulking and potash for soap, while importing cloth from Flanders and spices from the Levant via Genoese galleys. Gdańsk's Artus Court, a merchant guild hall with Arthurian frescoes, sealed deals over ale. This network formed the backbone of their economy, funding wars, universities, and more, with grain alone making up 80% of exports. Cultural assets shone just as brightly, building soft power that outlasted mere wealth. The Jagiellonian University, refounded in 1400 with endowments of 20 villages and salt tax revenues, became Europe's intellectual gem. It trained minds like Copernicus in canon law and medicine, or Jan Długosz, whose 12-volume Annales preserved Polish lore, from legends to current events. Renaissance art thrived too. Weizstoss's massive wooden altarpiece in St. Mary's Basilica, carved from 1477 to 1489 with 200 figures depicting the Dormition, silver Madonna sculptures, and commissioned architecture at Wawel, plus libraries under Sigismund II stocked with over 10,000 volumes, including rare manuscripts like Ptolemy's Geography. These elements weren't just decorative, they attracted talents like poet Callimachus, fostering humanism through studies of Cicero and Virgil. Finally, revenues kept everything flowing smoothly. Royal taxes included the Llanoway levy of 1 gross per 1 of farmland, plus tributes from vassals like Moldavia's yearly gifts or Prussian territories post-1466, where the Teutonic Order paid 2,000 marks in annual homage after becoming a Polish fief. The Folwark system amplified this, relying on serf labor across thousands of acres of crown domains to boost agricultural profits, generate surplus for export via river barges, and sustain the court's lavish lifestyle. Think feasts of swan and imported fruits. Together, these assets painted a picture of a dynasty that turned conquest into timeless legacy. Jagiellonians didn't waste frivolously investing alliances infrastructure, lost Habsburg shifts, Mohács 1526, Louis II death, no heir, claims via Vienna. 1515 double weddings backfired Anna Ferdinand. 1572 Sigismund II childless death. Inbreeding lifestyle dynasty and elective kings weakened. Habsburgs dominate. Ferdinand I. Inheritance. Peace. Augsburg. Cultural legacies. University 40,000 plus students. AI history. Krakow Renaissance. UNESCO Cloth Hall. Unions shaped Europe borders. Cultures Baltic. Hansa. Adriatic Venetian. Proof. True old money impact persists. First, Jogaila's secret murder of Kęstutis. The Grand Duchy of Lithuania in the 14th century was a vast and powerful entity, extending from the Baltic Sea in the north to the Black Sea in the south, serving as one of the last pagan strongholds in a predominantly Christian Europe. This expansive duchy faced constant threats from the Teutonic Knights, who launched repeated crusades against it, as well as from neighboring powers like Poland and the Russ's principalities. At the heart of its leadership were two brothers, Algirdas, who served as Grand Duke and focused on eastern expansions into Russ's territories, incorporating regions like Kiev and Smolensk through military campaigns and strategic marriages, and Kęstutis, his co-ruler, who was responsible for defending the western frontiers against the aggressive incursions of the Teutonic Order, leading numerous raids into Prussia and capturing thousands of prisoners to bolster Lithuanian defenses. Their rule functioned as a dual monarchy, with power shared effectively, allowing Lithuania to maintain its independence and grow into a major European force, resisting Christianization and external domination for decades. In 1377, Algirdas passed away, leaving the throne to his eldest son from his second marriage, Jogaila, a young and ambitious leader born around 1352, who was influenced by his mother, Uliana of Tver, an Orthodox Christian princess, pushing him toward potential alliances with Orthodox Russ's states. This succession created immediate tensions, as Kęstutis, who had expected to retain significant influence as co-ruler, viewed Jogaila as an inexperienced upstart threatening the traditional pagan order. Kęstutis had his own capable son, Vytautas, born around 1350, a skilled warrior who had already proven himself in battles against the Teutons, and together they positioned themselves as defenders of Lithuania's pagan heritage against Jogaila's emerging pro-Christian leanings. Tensions built gradually, with shifting alliances and growing distrust. By 1380, Jogaila secretly signed the Treaty of Dovydiškės with the Teutonic Knights, ceding some borderlands in exchange for their support against internal rivals, a direct betrayal of Kęstutis' lifelong efforts to combat the order, which had been conducting annual raids into Lithuanian territories like Samogitia. When Kęstutis discovered this treaty, he mobilized his forces, marching on Vilnius in 1381, deposing Jogaila, and installing Vytautas as a co-ruler. This marked the eruption of the Lithuanian Civil War, a brutal internal conflict lasting from 1381 to 1384, characterized by family divisions, shifting loyalties among nobles, and involvement of external powers like the Teutonic Knights, who exploited the chaos to launch further attacks. Jogaila, forced into hiding, negotiated with his half-brother Skirgaila and renewed ties with the Teutons, regaining momentum by mid-1382. He assembled an army from loyal vassals in eastern territories, turning the tide through a combination of military maneuvers and diplomatic intrigue. Kęstutis and Vytautas achieved early successes such as capturing Vilnius and briefly imprisoning Jogaila, but Jogaila's escape allowed him to rally forces and counterattack, leading to battles like the one near Trakai in 1381, where Kęstutis' troops defeated Jogaila's army, forcing him to flee to Vitebsk. The conflict darkened in the summer of 1382, amid the ongoing civil war, when Jogaila invited Kęstutis and Vytautas to Krewo Castle for what was presented as peace negotiations. Krewo Castle, located in present-day Belarus, was a fortified structure built in the 13th century with robust stone walls, deep dungeons, and strategic towers, originally designed for defense against invaders, but now serving as a site of internal deception. Jogaila assured safe conduct, but upon arrival, he ordered their arrest. Vytautas escaped dramatically, disguising himself, according to some accounts, as a servant, or using a rope to descend from a window, fleeing to the Teutonic stronghold of Marienburg, where he was baptized as Wiegand and began plotting revenge, later burning Teutonic castles in retaliation. Kęstutis, however, remained imprisoned in the castle's lower levels. Just 1 week later, on August 3rd or 15th, 1382, Kęstutis was discovered dead. The official narrative claimed natural causes, such as a heart attack or complications from old age, given that he was around 85 years old. Historical accounts, however, indicate that Jogaila orchestrated the murder in Krewo Castle during the Lithuanian Civil War, framing it as a natural death to secure his power. This act was deliberate and ruthless, aimed at removing a key obstacle without inciting widespread rebellion. The concealment was essential to prevent backlash from Lithuanian nobles, who held Kęstutis in high regard as a heroic defender against the Teutons. Revealing the murder could have rallied the nobility against Jogaila, fracturing his authority. This was concealed meticulously to dodge that Lithuanian noble backlash, much like how Napoleon Bonaparte handled the execution of the Duc d'Enghien. Bonaparte's execution of the Duc d'Enghien in 1804 was a calculated power move. The Duke, Louis-Antoine de Bourbon-Condé, born in 1772 and a Bourbon royal in exile in Ettenheim, Germany, was falsely accused of plotting against Napoleon with British support. Napoleon ordered his kidnapping by French gendarmes, who crossed the Rhine secretly, dragging him to France for a sham trial at the Château de Vincennes. On March 21st, 1804, at 3 a.m., he was shot by firing squad in the castle's moat and buried hastily in an unmarked grave. Framed as justice to eliminate a rival and deter royalist threats, it provoked massive outrage across Europe, alienating monarchs like Tsar Alexander III, who called it worse than a crime, a blunder, and contributing to the Third Coalition War. Napoleon's advisors, including Talleyrand, saw it as a stain on his legacy, and Napoleon later regretted it. Similarly, Jogaila's family betrayal was veiled as a natural death to consolidate power without immediate revolt, though it risked long-term alienation. The development angle suggests investigating Francis's chronicles or Krewo Castle records for the gritty murder details. George Francis, a 15th century Byzantine historian born in 1401, authored the Chronicon Minus, a memoir-like chronicle covering 1413 to 1477, including eyewitness accounts of palace intrigues, betrayals, and the fall of Constantinople in 1453, where he detailed Ottoman sieges and internal Byzantine power struggles with bias toward his patrons like Emperor Constantine XI. While focused on the East, his works provide insight into how medieval chroniclers documented events, detailed yet moralistic and selective, allowing cross-references with Lithuanian sources for parallels in recording hidden murders. Krewo Castle records, if surviving in archives in Minsk or Vilnius, could include logs of prisoners, guard assignments, or eyewitness statements. Modern excavations in the 2010s uncovered 14th century artifacts like weapons, coins, pottery, and tools, hinting at daily life but yielding no direct murder evidence due to the site's demolition in the 19th century and wars destroying fragments. Historians rely on Polish and Lithuanian chronicles, such as those by Jan Długosz, a 15th century Polish cleric and diplomat born in 1415, whose Annales seu Chronicae encliti regni Poloniae spans 12 volumes and describes the era vividly, confirming foul play and suggesting methods like strangulation by guards or poisoning, possibly ordered by Jogaila's brother Jagiellon, though exact details are scarce from concealment efforts. To frame this whole thing, it can be called the Uncle Jogaila Killed for Power, capturing the raw personal betrayal that launched a dynasty. Compare it to the Palaiologos' blinding of John IV Lascaris. In the Byzantine Empire, Michael VIII Palaiologos recaptured Constantinople in 1261 from the Latin Empire, but to secure his throne, he ordered the blinding of the young legitimate emperor John IV Lascaris, born in 1250 and only 11 years old, on Christmas Day in Nicaea using a hot iron, a common disqualification tactic under Byzantine law, barring mutilated individuals from rule. Michael then imprisoned John for life in a monastery, framing it as necessary for stability. This caused a church schism, the Arsenites Schism, lasting until 1310, with Patriarch Arsenios excommunicating Michael in 1262, leading to rebellions by Arsenite supporters demanding John's restoration. John lived until around 1305 as a monk, even forgiving Michael's successor Andronikos II during a visit. Like Jogaila's murder, it was a dynastic elimination concealed under political necessity, but it haunted Michael's legacy, much as Kęstutis' death shadowed Jogaila's rise. Sigismund II's secret marriage to Barbara Radziwiłł. Ever heard of a royal romance so explosive it sent shock waves through an entire empire, pitting love against politics, religion, and tradition? That's the wild tale of Sigismund II Augustus, the last Jagiellonian king, and his clandestine marriage to Barbara Radziwiłł, a Lithuanian Calvinist beauty who became the most controversial queen in Polish history. This wasn't just a hidden wedding. It was a bombshell that ignited noble fury, threatened the throne, and echoed scandals across centuries. We're talking about a union sealed in secrecy in 1547 before Sigismund even ascended as king, all to dodge the fierce Catholic backlash that could have derailed everything. But when the truth leaked, oh boy, the outrage was massive. Nobles seethed, the court erupted, and it nearly cost him his crown. Yet this marriage is factual. Its secrecy verified through historical records, and it draws parallels to other infamous liaisons, like Queen Elizabeth I's tangled affair with Robert Dudley. Let's start with the man at the center, Sigismund II Augustus. Born in 1520 to King Sigismund I, the Old and Bona Sforza, an Italian powerhouse who shaped Polish politics with her iron will. Sigismund grew up in the opulent Krakow court, educated in humanism, arts, and statecraft, but he was no stranger to personal turmoil. His first marriage in 1543 to Elizabeth of Austria was a political match arranged when he was just 23 and she 16. They met right before the vows, no sparks flying there. It was all about alliances with the Habsburgs, but Elizabeth died childless in 1545 after a tragic riding accident or possibly epilepsy complications, leaving Sigismund heartbroken and free, though pressured to remarry for heirs. Enter Barbara Radziwiłł, born around 1520 into one of Lithuania's mightiest families, the Radziwiłłs, who wielded immense power in the Grand Duchy. Barbara was no shrinking violet. Widowed young from her first husband Stanisław Gasztod in 1542, she was known for her stunning looks, pale skin, golden hair, sharp wit, and rumors swirled about her lively social life, some calling her promiscuous, even accusing her of witchcraft later on. But Sigismund saw something deeper. Their affair likely sparked in 1543, while she was still married, turning passionate after both were widowed. By 1547, their bond was unbreakable. Sigismund, still Grand Duke of Lithuania and heir to Poland, secretly married Barbara in Vilnius sometime in July or August. The exact date's a mystery, shrouded in whispers. Why the secrecy? To avoid the Catholic backlash that would erupt from marrying a Calvinist in a devoutly Catholic realm. Poland-Lithuania was a Catholic stronghold, and Barbara's Protestant leanings tied to her family's Reformation sympathies made her a lightning rod. Revealing it too soon could alienate the clergy, nobles, and his mother Bona, who despised the Radziwiłłs as upstarts threatening her influence. So they hushed it, living in blissful seclusion, but secrets like this don't stay buried. When word slipped out in late 1547, the noble outrage was deafening. Petitions flooded in, calling the marriage a misalliance, an insult to the crown. The same, Poland's parliament refused to recognize it, and Bona schemed relentlessly to annul it, spreading gossip about Barbara's supposed lovers and moral failings. Sigismund fought back fiercely, even threatening abdication, and by 1550, after his father's death made him king, he forced Barbara's coronation in Wawel Cathedral, a lavish affair that only fueled more resentment. Tragically, she died just 5 months later in 1551, possibly from cervical cancer or poisoning rumors, childless and vilified, but Sigismund mourned her deeply, keeping her memory alive through portraits and refusing to remarry productively. This marriage, hushed to avoid Catholic backlash, echoed Tudor's Elizabeth I Dudley affair in so many ways. Elizabeth I, born in 1533, and Robert Dudley, born 1532, knew each other from childhood, both imprisoned in the Tower under Mary Vi. Elizabeth for suspected treason, Dudley for his family's plot. When Elizabeth became queen in 1558, Dudley, her master of the horse, became her favorite, sparking rumors of a secret affair. His wife Amy Robsart's mysterious death in 1560, falling downstairs, possibly murder, fueled scandal, much like Barbara's early widowhood and later death, whispers. Elizabeth and Dudley shared intimate moments, gifts, and whispers of marriage, but she never wed him, fearing backlash from nobles and foreign powers who saw him as low-born and ambitious. Their bond was passionate, hidden in court flirtations to dodge political uproar, just as Sigismund concealed his vows to sidestep religious fury. Both pairs faced accusations, Elizabeth of impropriety, Barbara of promiscuity, and their loves threatened thrones, with Dudley proposing multiple times only for Elizabeth to prioritize power. The parallels are striking: forbidden love, secrecy for survival, and enduring legacies of what-ifs. For deeper insights, the development angle points to analyzing Radziwiłł family letters or Krakow court records for marriage details. The Radziwiłł archives, preserved in places like the Central Archives of Historical Records in Warsaw, hold correspondence from Barbara's brothers Mikołaj the Red and Mikołaj the Black, powerful Calvinist magnates who backed the marriage for influence. These letters might reveal intimate details, like secret meetings in Vilnius palaces or negotiations with Sigismund, shedding light on the wedding's logistics, perhaps even vows exchanged in a private chapel. Krakow court records from the royal chancery in Wawel document the same debates, petitions against the union, and Sigismund's decrees forcing recognition, including threats to nobles who opposed. Historians like those citing the Lithuanian chronicles note the doubtful circumstances with no public witnesses, emphasizing the hush. Cross-referencing these could uncover eyewitness accounts or financial transactions for the secret ceremony. Compare this to Grimaldi's Grace Kelly affair for hidden liaisons. Grace Kelly, the Oscar-winning actress born 1929, met Prince Rainier III of Monaco in 1955 at Cannes, sparking a whirlwind romance. But before their 1956 wedding, dubbed the Wedding of the Century, Grace had affairs, including with married actor Ray Milland and Playboy Prince Ali Khan, caught cheating just before committing to Rainier. Their union was partly arranged. Rainier needed an heir and Hollywood glamour to boost Monaco's image, while Grace sought escape from acting pressures. Post-marriage, scandals emerged. Rainier allegedly took mistresses months after vows, humiliating Grace, who felt trapped in palace life, giving up her career as a sacrifice. Biographers claim Rainier demanded fertility tests and a $2 million dowry, with Grace's family paying half. Like Sigismund's secret to avoid backlash, Grace's pre-wedding flings were hushed to preserve the fairy tale narrative, but leaks revealed a messier truth: power dynamics, infidelity rumors, and regret, mirroring the outrage over Barbara's unsuitable status. Then there's Redstone's Sumner-Holland affair for another layer of hidden liaisons. Sumner Redstone, the media mogul born 1923, met Sidney Holland in 2010 via matchmaker Patty Stanger, starting a 5-year relationship where she moved into his Beverly Park mansion, influencing his business as Viacom and CBS chairman. Holland, 45 years younger, received millions, $18 million in gifts, properties, and was named fiancé, but it ended explosively in 2015 when Sumner discovered her affair with actor George Pilgrim. He kicked her out, alleging she and another ex, Manuela Herzer, manipulated him during the health declines, sedating him with Ativan for control. Lawsuits flew. Holland sued for breach of contract, claiming promises of half his $20 million mansion post-death, while Sumner countersued for elder abuse, saying they stole $150 million. The affair was lurid, with Holland facilitating Sumner's encounters with other women for favors, all concealed until his daughter, Sherry, exposed it via secret recordings. Like Sigismund's secrecy to avoid noble outrage, Redstone hid the relationship's toxicity to maintain image, but revelations caused family rifts and legal battles, echoing the Catholic backlash Sigismund feared. Frame this as The Secret Bride Who Shocked Poland, a title that nails the drama, the Lithuanian Calvinist who, through secret vows, became queen against all odds, shaking the foundations of a Catholic kingdom. It's a story of defiance, Sigismund battling his mother, the same, and clergy to crown her, even as poison rumors swirled after her death, some blaming Bona. Barbara's coronation in 1550 was triumphant yet tense, with nobles boycotting, but Sigismund's persistence won, though briefly. Casimir IV's secret anti-Habsburg plot. Casimir IV, a key figure in the Jagiellonian dynasty that ruled Poland and Lithuania like bosses from the late 1300s. Born in 1427 as the younger son of Władysław II Jagiełło, the Lithuanian Grand Duke who became Poland's king after marrying Queen Jadwiga, Casimir IV grew up in a world of endless wars and clever diplomacy. His dad had converted from paganism to Christianity to seal that union, creating a massive Polish-Lithuanian powerhouse that stretched from the Baltic to the Black Sea. By 1440, after his brother Władysław III died at the Battle of Varna fighting the Ottomans, Casimir became Grand Duke of Lithuania. And in 1447 he snagged the Polish crown too, reigning until 1492. He was a warrior king, beating the Teutonic Knights in the 13 Years' War from 1454 to 1466, grabbing Pomerania and making Prussia a vassal. But he was also a family man, father to 13 kids, including 4 sons who became kings: Władysław II of Bohemia and Hungary, John I Albert and Alexander of Poland, and Sigismund I the Old. One of those sons was Saint Casimir, born in 1458, a pious prince who died young and became Lithuania's patron saint. Now the secret revolves around Casimir IV, supporting the 1438 Hussite offer of the Czech crown to his son Casimir, plotting against Habsburg influence in Bohemia, per Web 1.10. Back then, Bohemia was a hot mess after Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund's death in 1437. Sigismund, a Luxembourg, had been anti-Hussite, crushing the Hussite Wars. Those were the 1419 to 1436 uprisings sparked by Jan Hus's execution in 1415 for heresy, where Czech reformers fought for religious freedom, like communion in both kinds and less church wealth. The Hussites, divided into moderate Utraquists and radical Taborites, held sway in Bohemia, rejecting Habsburg Albert II, Sigismund's son-in-law, who claimed the throne in 1438. The anti-Habsburg Hussite factions, desperate for a non-Catholic friendly king, offered the Czech crown to Casimir, the fourth's son Casimir, in 1438, and Casimir IV backed it hard, seeing a chance to expand Jagiellonian reach and weaken the Habsburgs, who were rising as Central Europe's big players through marriages and claims. This plot against Habsburg influence in Bohemia was no joke. It involved secret talks, potential military support, and a bid to install a Jagiellonian on the Bohemian throne, disrupting the Holy Roman Empire's balance. But why conceal it? To avoid diplomatic fallout like wars or excommunications from the Pope, who backed the Habsburgs as Catholic defenders. Revealing support for heretical Hussites could alienate allies, spark internal revolts in Catholic Poland, or invite Habsburg invasions. So Casimir IV kept it under wraps, maneuvering quietly while his dad Jagiełło was still alive. Wait, actually, Jagiełło died in 1434, but the family legacy continued. This was concealed to avoid diplomatic fallout like Saxe-Coburg's George V espionage. Speaking of that comparison, Saxe-Coburg's George V espionage is a perfect parallel for hidden royal machinations. George V, King of the United Kingdom from 1910 to 1936, came from the house of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, a German lineage through his dad, Edward VII, and Grandma Queen Victoria, who married Albert of Saxe-Coburg. During World War I, anti-German sentiment boiled over. Gotha bombers hit London in 1917, killing civilians and fueling rage. George V, to dodge backlash, changed the royal name to Windsor in July 1917, ditching Saxe-Coburg Gotha and forcing relatives like the Battenbergs to become Mountbattens. But the espionage angle? George V ordered covert surveillance on his own son, the future Edward VIII, in the 1930s, suspecting Nazi sympathies and affairs like with Wallace Simpson. He had MI5 spy on Edward, tapping phones and tailing him, all hushed to prevent scandal. Even wilder, George V's cousin Charles Edward, Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, became a Nazi general, spying on the British royals during George V's 1936 funeral, reporting to Hitler on family dynamics. This was concealed to avoid diplomatic fallout, just like Casimir IV's plot, royals playing dirty behind closed doors to protect power, risking everything if exposed. For the development angle, we should examine Hussite correspondence or Casimir's Polish records for plot details. Hussite letters, scattered in Czech archives like those in Prague's National Library or Vienna's Habsburg collections, might include envoys' dispatches from 1438 detailing the offer to Casimir's son, negotiations on religious tolerances, and military pledges against Albert II. These could reveal coded messages or ambassador reports showing how Casimir IV coordinated from Krakow or Vilnius. Polish records like the Crown Matrika in Warsaw's Central Archives hold royal charters, diplomatic notes, and council minutes from Casimir's era, potentially uncovering alliances with Hussite leaders like George of Potibrady, who later became Bohemian king in 1458. Historians could cross-check with Teutonic Order documents as they eyed Bohemian chaos for gains. Digging here would flesh out the plot's logistics, troop movements, bribes, or promises of autonomy for Hussites. Compare this to Habsburg's Maximilian I bribes for covert schemes. Maximilian I, Holy Roman Emperor from 1493 to 1519, was a master schemer, using gold to bend electors. In 1486, to become king of the Romans, he leveraged Fugger bankers to bribe the 7 electors, outbidding rivals with massive sums. Some say 500,000 gulden total. His 1519 election as emperor involved even bigger bribes. Fuggers loaning 850,000 florins to sway votes against Francis II's, who offered 3 million. Maximilian's schemes included secret treaties, like the 1490 betrothal to Anne of Brittany to grab her duchy, or the 1495 League of Venice against France, all concealed to avoid wars. He plotted against Venice in the 1508 League of Cambrai, bribing spies and allies. Like Casimir IV's anti-Habsburg plot, Maximilian's bribes were hidden to dodge fallout, excommunication threats or coalitions, plotting expansions through cash and intrigue. Then there's Redstone's Viacom espionage for covert schemes. Sumner Redstone, the media titan who built Viacom and CBS into empires, faced wild family drama in his 90s. In 2015 to 2016, his ex-fiancée Sydney Holland and companion Manuela Herzer were ousted after allegations they spied on him, manipulating his will for millions. But the twist: Redstone's daughter Sherry allegedly paid nurses to secretly record him, capturing rants and decisions to prove incapacity or expose mistresses. Holland claimed Sherry gave one nurse $10,000 for tapes, hiring transcribers for dirt on affairs and business. This covert op, concealed to avoid legal fallout, mirrored boardroom battles. Redstone sued exes for elder abuse, claiming they stole $150 million via gifts and influence. Sherry's schemes helped her gain control of National Amusements, the holding company, leading to the 2019 Viacom-CBS merger. Like Casimir IV's plot, it was a hidden intrigue for power, risking scandals if leaked, family espionage against rivals for the throne. Frame this as the plot to steal Bohemia's crown, because it captures the audacity. Casimir IV eyeing Bohemia for his son Casimir, using Hussite unrest to challenge Habsburgs. The 1438 offer came amid Albert II's election, with Hussites rejecting him as Sigismund's heir, preferring a tolerant Jagiellonian. Casimir IV supported it, perhaps sending envoys or promising aid, plotting to install his son and fracture Habsburg hold on the empire. Władysław III's secret survival rumors. Władysław III entered the world on October 31st, 1424, right in the heart of Krakow, Poland, as the firstborn son of Władysław II Jagiełło, that legendary Lithuanian Grand Duke who ditched paganism for Christianity to wed Queen Jadwiga and kickstart the powerhouse Jagiellonian Dynasty. Growing up in a palace alive with scheming advisors, fervent religious debates, and the constant drumbeat of war, Władysław III absorbed a legacy of audacious triumphs. His father had famously demolished the Teutonic Knights at the Battle of Grunwald back in 1410, carving out a blueprint for family boldness that would define generations. At just 10 years old in 1434, following his father's passing, Władysław III claimed the Polish crown, but being a kid, he couldn't call the shots solo. Regents stepped in to steer the ship while he honed skills in ruling, negotiating treaties, and leading troops. Jump ahead to 1440, an opportunity knocked big time when Hungary's throne sat empty after King Albert II's demise, prompting Hungarian lords, wary of Habsburg grabs, to crown the 15-year-old Władysław as their monarch as well, styling him Ulaszlo I. Holding these twin crowns catapulted him into Central Europe's spotlight, but it also hurled him headlong into the Ottoman Empire's path, as Sultan Murad II's forces rampaged through Christian territories, eyeing more conquests. Everything built toward the explosive crusade of Varna, a frantic effort to slam the brakes on Ottoman advances and throw a lifeline to the crumbling Byzantine Empire. In 1443, Władysław teamed up with the brilliant Hungarian commander John Hunyadi, Serbian leader Juraj Branković, and envoys from the Pope, unleashing an offensive that started strong. They seized Niš and Sofia, compelling Murad to beg for terms in the 1444 Treaty of Szeged, vowing to pull out of Serbia and Wallachia. But twist incoming. Egged on by papal pressure to shatter the truce for a sacred showdown, Władysław flipped the script mere days later, advancing on Varna along the Black Sea with roughly 20,000 soldiers facing off against Murad's overwhelming 60,000. The clash at Varna on November 10, 1444, turned into utter carnage. The Christian side battled with grit, but overwhelmed and tactically outplayed, they shattered. At a mere 20 years old, Władysław spearheaded a valiant yet foolhardy cavalry assault directly into the Sultan's elite janissaries, evaporating amid the frenzy. Eyewitnesses recounted his beheading, with the head hoisted on a spear and later pickled in honey for showcase in Bursa, the Ottoman hub, as a grisly prize. Christians never located his remains, igniting instant skepticism and birthing those persistent rumors of his survival. Kafka-desk.org.wordpress. Calm, those whispers of escape detonated almost immediately post-battle. Tales of Władysław dodging death, maybe battered but breathing, bolting to far-off realms to exist under the radar. A favored yarn depicts him trekking to the Holy Land, joining as a knight of St. Catherine at Mount Sinai, then nesting in Portugal or Madeira as a reclusive monk or hermit, wedding a noble local and siring kids under pseudonyms like Enrique Alemão or Sigismundo Alemão at kafka-desk.org.wordpress.com. Fresh digs into Portuguese annals suggest an enigmatic Polish warrior surfacing in the mid-1400s, awarded estates by King Afonso V, fading into obscurity around 1484. Even bolder speculations tie him to Christopher Columbus's bloodline, positing Columbus as his secret offspring or descendant, accounting for the navigator's enigmatic origins and savvy with elite charts honed from regal secrets. History.stackexchange.com. These narratives clung on for ages, with scribes like Jan Długosz, Poland's premier chronicler, flagging the ambiguity, and subsequent authors glamorizing it in literature and dramas. But the big question, why bury them? The crown, think Polish aristocrats, and the rising regency led by Cardinal Zbigniew Olesznicki, stifled these assertions to guarantee Casimir IV's untroubled rise. Casimir, Władysław's junior sibling, held Lithuania as Grand Duke, and any whiff of Władysław's endurance might ignite civil strife, splinter allegiances, or lure Ottoman meddling. By affirming his demise, they locked in stability. Casimir ascended in 1447 after a trio of interregnum years, kick-starting his extended rule. This muzzling paralleled the Romanovs' Anastasia legend, where Grand Duchess Anastasia Nikolaevna, the Tsar's youngest born in 1901, was said to have eluded the 1918 Bolshevik slaughter in Yekaterinburg. Fraudsters like Anna Anderson surfaced in the 1920s, duping some Romanov kin with yarns of wondrous evasion, sheltered by centuries, whisked away, enduring undercover. 1990s, DNA scrutiny shattered it, confirming the entire family's end. Yet the fable thrived via tomes, flicks like the 1956 Ingrid Bergman Starer and the 1997 cartoon Anastasia, stoked by clandestine interments and Soviet hush-ups to thwart monarchist revolts. Identical to Władysław's case, the murmurs were logged but disputed, glamorizing sorrow as powers silenced them to seal the dynasty's fate cleanly. For a deeper plunge, the development angle pushes us to scrutinize Portuguese records or Varna battle narratives for survival clues. Portuguese repositories, such as Lisbon's Torre do Tombo or Madeira's local ledgers, could contain conveyances or missives about a Polish prince nesting there after 1444, maybe under lineages of King John I granting havens to fugitives. Kafkades.org.wordpress.com, scholars like Manuel Rosa have scoured these, asserting DNA connections or papers depicting a cavalier-fitting Władysław's profile, landing circa 1447, tying the knot and spawning successors. Varna battle tales from direct observers like Hunyadi's dispatches or Ottoman scribes like Ashik Pasha Zadeh paint the king's surge and severing, but highlight the corpses vanishing in the melee, exceeding 10,000 Christians cut down, ground strewn with cadavers. Byzantine scribe Ducas noted the head dispatched to the Sultan, yet lacking Christian validation. Matching with Vatican cables or Hungarian yearbooks might expose discrepancies, such as absent panoply or standards suggesting getaway. Contemporary digs at Varna locales have exhumed armaments and skeletons, but no sovereign relics, leaving the portal ajar. Slavorum.org. Contrast this with Palaiologos' Andreas title, vending for lineage concealments. Andreas Palaiologos, kin to Byzantine Emperor Constantine XI, perished in Constantinople's 1453 tumble, claimed titular despot of Morea. Penniless and banished in Rome, he peddled his Byzantine imperial entitlements in 1494 to Francis Charles VIII for an annuity, anticipating Charles's Ottoman crusade to reinstate him. With Charles's demise sans action, Andreas nullified the deal, then bequeathed or resold the honors in 1502 to Spain's Ferdinand and Isabella, who snubbed it but wielded it emblematically for Eastern assertions. This amounted to a concealment. Andreas wiped his clan's heritage by merchandising it, muting Byzantine resurgence visions for personal endurance, akin to Władysław's alleged banishment obliterating his sovereignty for tranquility. Or consider Lee's William lineage wipeout for a further dynastic glossover. Within Robert E. Lee's clan, William Henry Fitzhugh Lee, his second offspring, bore a heritage bound to bondage, possessing estates like Ravensworth, where bonded folks were expunged from kintails post-Civil War to recast the Lees as dignified Southern gents. Annals overlooked William's Confederate duties or his post-bellum quashing of black privileges amid Reconstruction, with kin chroniclers like Douglas Southall Freeman downplaying bondage links efficaciously expunging awkward limbs to safeguard the gallant fable, mirroring the stifling of Władysław's endurance to shield Casimir's branch. Wrap this entire riddle as the king who vanished after Varna, since it seizes the spectacle, a 20-year-old holy warrior monarch hurtling into fable, his destiny an empty canvas for lore. It's akin to a medieval suspense, the combat's haze, the absent corpse, the banishment yarns. Władysław's assumed end altered Europe. Hungary slipped into guardianship under Babe Ladislaus Posthumous. Poland bided for Casimir, and Ottomans lunged at Constantinople. But envision the cascade if he endured, a friar sovereign scheming comeback, or begetting strains in Portugal. The muting was pivotal. The crown circulated the demise story through formal annals, squelching rustic fables or mariner yarns of glimpses in Constantinople or Jerusalem. Academia.edu. Like Anastasia's fable, where Bolsheviks concealed the cadavers to avert sainthood, then charlatans plugged the gap with fabricated journals and recollections, vetted by tribunals in the 1920s to 60s, till DNA sealed it in 2007. Bona Sforza's secret poisoning allegations. Bona Sforza emerged in 1494 as a product of Milan's dazzling yet perilous Sforza dynasty, the offspring of Duke Gian Galeazzo Sforza and Isabella of Aragon, immersed from childhood in Italy's Renaissance brilliance and its vicious political machinations that molded her into a masterful strategist. Losing her father early, he passed under mysterious circumstances in 1494, quite possibly poisoned by his own uncle Ludovico. She sharpened her intellect in Bari, absorbing lessons in governance, economics, and herbal knowledge from her mother, abilities that would eventually stoke those dark poisoning suspicions. By 1518, at the age of 24, she married Sigismund I of Poland in a union orchestrated for strategic bonds and her substantial dowry, infusing Krakow's royal court with Italian elegance, envision painters, builders, and innovations that overhauled Poland's financial system, such as unifying measurements and wresting back crown properties from avaricious aristocrats. Bona was far from a mere ornament. She accumulated enormous holdings across Lithuania and Ruthenia, advocating for farming improvements and commerce expansions that ballooned the royal coffers, though her exotic customs and intrusive involvement sparked resentment among the Polish nobility, who labeled her an interfering foreigner. She gave birth to 6 children, among them Sigismund II Augustus, in 1520, whom she rigorously prepared for leadership, shaping state decisions and venturing into international relations, such as supporting maneuvers against the Habsburgs to bolster Poland's independence. Now step into the shoes of Elizabeth of Austria, the tragic daughter-in-law whose abrupt 1545 demise set off the blaze of controversy. Born in 1526 to Holy Roman Emperor Ferdinand I and Anne of Bohemia and Hungary, Elizabeth embodied Habsburg royalty, married off to Sigismund II in 1543 at a tender 17 in an arranged pact designed to bind Poland tighter to the empire and fend off Ottoman incursions. Their union hit rough waters from the start. It was no romantic bond, with Sigismund II showing apparent disinterest, and Elizabeth grappling with persistent health issues, potentially epilepsy stemming from youthful tumbles or hints of early-onset cancer. They resided primarily in Vilnius, yet frictions mounted. Bona, the domineering mother-in-law, butted heads with Elizabeth over sway, perceiving her as a Habsburg tool eroding Jagiellonian authority. Murmurs circulated that Bona harbored grudge against Elizabeth's delay in bearing offspring. worrying it jeopardized Sigismund II's standing during tense inheritance debates, particularly with Bona's Italian connections tugging her toward anti-Habsburg intrigues. Then in June 1545, Elizabeth succumbed unexpectedly at 19, following spasms formerly attributed to epilepsy or fallout from a horseback mishap. But palace chatter detonated. Bona Sforza, Sigismund III's Italian queen, stood accused of poisoning her daughter-in-law, Elizabeth of Austria, in 1545 to cement her son Sigismund II's succession, per Webb 13. What drove the alleged poisoning? The incentive centered on authority. Absent an heir from Elizabeth, Bona could guide Sigismund II to a union amplifying her clout, maybe even advancing her daughter's matrimonial prospects. Elizabeth's passing paved the route for Sigismund II's subsequent contentious wedlock to Barbara Radziwiłł in 1547, a liaison Bona resisted but failed to thwart. The technique? Gossips directed fingers at Bona's familiarity with Italian toxins, akin to those from her Sforza heritage or the notorious acqua tofana, a gradual killer popular in Renaissance circles, administered stealthily into meals or remedies amid a Vilnius sojourn. However, proof remained scant. Postmortems weren't routine, and manifestations aligned with organic ailments. As contemporary scholars observe, she probably suffered cervical cancer or acute epilepsy. Nonetheless, the charges lingered, intensified by Bona's adversaries like the Habsburgs, who viewed it as an assault on their lineage, and Polish gentry begrudging her territorial acquisitions. The court silenced these allegations to shield Bona's sway, akin to Borgia's poisonings, per Webb 13. The Borgias, Pope Alexander VI, Cesare, and Lucrezia, gained infamy for supposed poison cabals, such as Cantarella, an arsenic concoction. Deployed to dispatch adversaries in late 15th century Rome, with casualties writhing much like Elizabeth did, tales of Lucrezia toxining spouses or Cesare eliminating prelates were disseminated by antagonists but muted by papal might to uphold Borgia's supremacy, reflecting how Sigismund I's entourage quashed the indictments against Bona, conceivably via manipulated histories or aristocratic inducements, guaranteeing her stewardship during his ailments and her dominance over Sigismund II up to his 1548 enthronement. For the development perspective, it's essential to scrutinize Habsburg correspondence or Krakow court archives for poisoning substantiation. Habsburg missives safeguarded in Vienna's repositories could disclose Ferdinand I's doubts. Diplomatic memos blaming Bona for wrongdoing to validate anti-Polish postures, or intelligence from operatives in Vilnius recounting Elizabeth's closing moments, such as abrupt convulsions post-dinners with Bona. Krakow court archives, housed in Warsaw's central repositories, might contain medic journals or inquiry annotations from 1545, alluding to toxic indicators dismissed or bystander declarations repressed. Scholars could verify against pharmacy inventories for dubious plants like belladonna, which Bona allegedly nurtured in her plots for healing intents. Contrast this to Trastamara's Eleanor de Guzman execution for lineage schemes. Eleanor, paramour to Castile's Alfonso XI, delivered him 10 offspring, endangering Queen Maria of Portugal's descent. Post-Alfonso's 1350 demise, Maria commanded Eleanor's 1351 slaying, decapitated or poisoned in certain narratives, to obliterate competitors and assure her son Peter I's crown, a savage concealment paralleling Bona's purported removal of Elizabeth to safeguard Sigismund II, or Bonaparte's Caroline disloyalty. Caroline Bonaparte, Napoleon's sibling, and Naples' queen, through spouse Joachim Murat, conspired against Josephine de Beauharnais, circulating tales and urging separation in 1809, so Napoleon could espouse Marie-Louise of Austria for progeny, disloyal to kin for lineage advantage, much like Bona's presumed intrigue. Frame this as the queen accused of poisoning her rival, a label that pins the antagonism, Bona perceiving Elizabeth as a menace to her command, the youthful Habsburg spouse colliding with the Italian overlord in a contest for Sigismund II's devotions. It's a narrative of conflicting heritages, Bona's Milanese refinement against Elizabeth's Austrian devotion, with poison serving as the supreme armament in a period where females exercised clout through obscurity. That's a wrap for today's video. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button, drop us a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss our new content. Thanks for watching.